Hello, everybody. And today we have, I think, a super interesting topic, which is the changing roles of women as we age. And we're going to dive into quite a few topics. We may even make this into a series. Who knows, right? Because there's a lot of things that we've started to unpack.
Yes, yeah, we were talking about it, and there's so much about women and as we age, and just from a looks department, and then there's ageism and stuff. So yeah, we might make this a series, but today we're specifically talking about the changing roles of women, and what happens, and we're thinking more of that, 50s, 60s time when our main carrying days are behind us. We might be starting to wind down from our peak earning years. And what's next? Because that is a big question.
It is a big
Um,
question.
and, there's so much opportunity out there. So that's what we were going to talk about today.
And we were looking at this is really from the research that we've done. This is one of the first generations where a lot of women have more financial independence, right? There's the education aspect to it. We add in that the financial independence from what we've been looking at. And I think it's true of the women that we see around us and even what we're doing here on our channel, right, Patricia?
Yes, rocking it in our 50s.
This is it. We're stepping into a period of life, I think, which is much more aligned with who we truly are. Not saying that it wasn't us before, but we have many more layers. And I think we're slowly letting go of certain layers. We're slowly letting go of things that we feel don't align with what we're looking for now. And I think a lot of women are embracing that and going, okay, what actually aligns with who I am and what I'm looking for, right? What does that mean to me? And I think that's what a lot of women are doing now in this period of life.
I completely agree. And I think for some of us, and more of us are moving forward, but for some of us, we are still maybe stuck in what society says we
I think,
should be doing. And
yeah.
like I was telling you earlier, my grandmother, when she first became a grandmother, was told by my uncle, like, you're a grandmother now, you need to start behaving that way. So no more coloring your hair. And when I look back, she was in her 40s only. So that society expectation of this
Huge.
is this is who you're supposed to be, this is how you're supposed to behave. And for a lot of women, as they move through their careers and their child caring years, for many of them, they move into those unpaid places,
Yeah.
looking after elderly parents, maybe looking after grandchildren, um, those sorts of things where we're now helping out, which is great. I think that's important. I think for many families, if there's not that parental help, they can't function.
Well,
So,
it's the anchor, right?
okay,
It's the anchor to a lot of these families, right? These women that are we are adapting. We've always had to adapt throughout, from puberty to when we hit the workplace because our roles need to be adapted in the workplace, how people see us, how we interact with male colleagues. And, this is a lot in some of the research that we were both looking at is our adaptability as women is huge,
yeah.
right? And I think this is where a lot of women are coming to realize now how much they've done and all the skills they've learned that are not necessarily skills that you learn in the, do you know what I mean? They're skills that you learn through life. And I think these are things that a lot of women are now looking to share with the next generation, right? And go, okay, it's taken me a long time to realize this. Like I had to live through all of this to realize it. If I can share that with you 10 years earlier, what are you going to be able to do with that? That
I
I had to wait till I reached this time of life to recognize it and to really embrace it. And I think, as you said, a lot of women now are looking to those mentoring roles, right? I've accumulated all of this. What am I going to do with it? Like, how can I best help the people around me?
that and I agreeing with everything that you're saying. But I think that, again, there's so much of what we do, even when we're in our midst of our careers, right? That is unrecognized, really, of the importance of it. And it's unpaid. And especially, and then as we kind of move past our careers, we're still kind of in that place. But like you said, there's so much value in what it is that we're bringing to the table, even in those situations. But that we can do more. I was on a call last week. It was a discussion panel of really successful businesswomen here in the Ottawa area. And they were talking about what were some of the things that made the biggest impact for their careers. And
Mm.
every last one of them, what was it, five or six of them? Every one last one of them said mentorship.
Yeah,
The things that official mentors and unofficial mentors and what people said about them when they weren't even in the room that gave them the confidence, the skills, the recognition, whatever, to move forward. And so you don't, like you said, we have skills
yeah,
and we may not even recognize many of our own skills. And so one of the things that I read is that as we get to this point, it's like, where do we move next?
yeah.
Get to know yourself. Like,
This is
because we don't
yeah,
always know ourselves and we don't give ourselves the recognition. So what are our skills? What can we bring to the table?
this is
And
it.
then
Yeah,
that off you can that'll open up your mind to what kind of other opportunities are there out there.
yeah. And this is it. And it really is, I think, as women, and that's partly what also we're doing with our channel, right? If there's anything that we can share to empower, to give confidence to women to whatever their age, to not shrink, to not think, oh, I'm 50 and 60. Well, I'm in menopause. I should be just quietly being what society expects me to be. Now, if that's something that you choose, that's absolutely fine. But I think it's so important just to go, you don't have to do that, right? Because of all these skills we've learned, one of the articles that I was reading up on, and we'll just kind of have a look, they were saying that, women in midlife bring a lot of skills, right? That again, just like we've been saying, we don't realize. To cite a few, like we have stronger boundaries. We're more aware of how to place our boundaries, and I think without necessarily always creating confrontation, we're just happier going. No, this isn't correct. I don't feel comfortable, whatever. But we have the language now to deal with that. We're very good at connecting across generations, right? And it's true. I look at friendships. I have friendships with people that are 15 years younger, and I have friendships with people that are 10 to 15 years older. And it's fun because I get different things from those friendships, right? And so I do think we are very good at that. And we have the emotional maturity, obviously, having lived that part of life. We bring a lot of that to the table now, which, let's face it, in your 20s and 30s, it's impossible to have, right? You just haven't had that length on earth to be able to understand certain things, right? And I think these are all skills that, if we, like you said, can shed certain expectations and can really kind of go, okay, who am I now? I'm in my early mid 50s or 60s. And again, it goes back to what aligns with me. What am I looking to have? I'm comfortable. I've had the career, whatever it is, or my children are grown. What is the next stage for me instead of just going, well, I'm just going to go disappear onto the golf
Yeah.
course. I
This
don't
is what I've been now. If you like golf, sure.
right. If
And
it,
yeah,
great.
not disappearing off into the sunset like
Yeah.
you have been told you have to. We're
Right.
living a lot longer now, and
Ah,
having a
not do
purpose.
it that time.
There's got to be reason to get out of bed every morning, but we
Oh my
have
goodness.
so much to offer the world. And when we start to hit this age, one other thing is that we can maybe start to do it on our own terms.
Right. And I
Oh,
love that. That is so true. Yeah.
yeah, I've been talking, well, retirement,
Oh
we're at
my
that age.
goodness.
So retirement is coming up a lot. And again, that's kind of a whole nother subject. But retirement is no longer the idea of, I'm going to stop my job and then I'm just going to sit back and watch the roses grow. That's no longer the way it is. Now, if you want to do that, all great. But if you don't want to do that, more and more people are going out and becoming consultants. That whole mentorship thing.
Right. Yeah.
They're volunteering. They're doing things that they never thought they would do. And they're doing it on a part-time basis or whatever basis.
Whatever works for them, this is it, right? It comes back to, I think this is a stage of life where we can actually create a life that suits us.
Yeah.
right? Kind of what you were saying, rather than fitting into this mold. It's like, okay, what am I looking for? Right? Instead of being told this is what you have to do and this is how you have to do it. And as we said, I can feel the series coming up. This is how you dress and this is how you have to behave. I think no. I mean, for example, my son a couple of months ago was like, "Hey, do you want to go-karting?" And I was like, "Could be fun." It was so much fun. Never thought I'd like it.
Yeah.
Right?
Like who knew? Like to try just to be open and trying different.
Right. I may have hated it and never done it again, but at least I tried it, right? And I think this is it. It really does come back to we can't shrink ourselves, right? If you want to do certain things that aren't, within the realms of what we discussed, of course that's fine. We're not saying people have to do it, but I think it's as women, we've been so used to fitting these molds in society. And I think this is a time where we can go, you know what, for once, I'm going to make my own mold and I'm going to make it in a way that fits with my values, with who I am, and with what I'm looking for. And I think when we do that, that's when we have so much more to offer back.
I completely agree. Perfectly said. I know that there was a book that you were looking at, and so we will. What's the name of that book there, Susan?
I think it was an article, but we'll definitely link it. It is Why Women's Transitions Are Built for Adaptability, which
Perfect.
could be very helpful for some ladies out there.
Great article. Yeah. So we will link that below because, we just want to give you guys some ideas of that there's more out there because you know what? We are all redefining what it's like to be a woman, kind of at any stage. And this particular podcast is where are we going? And we have so much to offer. And again, that panel discussion I saw last week, I can't tell you enough, Susan, how exciting and empowering it was to see all these incredibly successful women who are rocking it out there, who are all talking about mentorship and as they're going, hitting different places in their businesses about giving back and giving the next generation. But we can do that. We don't all have to have successful companies to do that. We have
Oh,
so many skills that we do not recognize that people need in the
yeah.
whether it's paid or unpaid, but
Hmm.
it's something that can give you purpose and put you out there.
This is it. And it's about giving back and I think really supporting the next generation so that they can then make their difference,
Yes.
right?
Awesome. All right, everyone. Great chatting with you, Susan, and I great chatting with
Always with
the
you.
audience. And if you have any comments or anything that you want to add, please put it down below. Other than that, have a great day, everyone.
See you next time.